Joining us now, though, my colleague from the NFL Media Group. It's Tom Pelissero back here in his usual Friday spot. How you doing, Tommy P?
Doing great. Rich, how are you? What's up to my boys in studio?
Tommy P, what's up,
What
baby?
up, Tom?
Woo.
Oh, my God.
We're hype.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my man's in them.
What's up, Tom?
Come on up.
So let's just jump right in with both feet here. And I understand there was a big game in the NFC North last night, but the Bears are sitting there going into San Francisco this weekend. Coaching job is open. I understand, he's not usually a source for national sports news, but sports talk radio host in Chicago, Dan McNeil, saying that the Bears heard that Jim Harbaugh was interested in their job and wanted to get it. And they decided to just keep Matt Eberflus even upon hearing all of that. What's your reporting about the Bears coaching search then and now, Tom Pelissero?
What I would say, Rich, and this is me going back in my brain. I had not seen that that statement made, but I mean, I heard last September that Jim Harbaugh had told people, I think I'm going to be the Chargers head coach. So it was pretty apparent from very early on that that was the job, if he came back to the NFL, that he would be targeting because of Justin Herbert, because of the marketplace, going back to California with his wife. It had a lot of different things. There were various rumblings through the course of time about the Bears potentially making a change. They actually had multiple days of meetings after the season last year involving a bunch of different people, obviously including Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, ownership, as well as Matt Eberflus at times. And the conclusion that they came to, and based upon how they finished, going 6-2, I believe it was, down the stretch, and playing a lot better on defense with Flus calling the plays, and after the Montez Sweat trade, was that they were going to make a change with the offensive side of the football, firing Luke Getsy, and up hiring Shane Waldron. Obviously, on a bunch of different fronts, that did not work out the way that the Bears were hoping it was going to. Would Jim Harbaugh have had an interest in a team that he played for in the 1980s? I'm sure. I mean, there were a lot of different possibilities that, come up through the course of time and in conversations with different people. What I can tell you, though, was from a very, very, very early stage, what I was hearing from reliable people was if Jim Harbaugh is coming back, he's going to L.A. He obviously interviewed for the Falcons job, too, but the Chargers was the one he got, and it's worked out well for all parties so far.
All right, so then let's talk about the here and now. I've said to you multiple times and said to here in this microphone, certainly when you see last night another 30-point effort from the Lions offense that includes stout running, smart play calling, high-level quarterback play, that Ben Johnson dialing up plays to beat the Packers is exactly what the Chicago Bears could use. Is he, based on your thoughts, knowledge, information, the main target for the Bears, or there are other ones that they've got in mind right now, Tom?
I would say they're still in the early stages, Rich, of that process and doing research on a bunch of different candidates, both the ones that are the logical next man up type of guys, as well as some that people are not thinking about and may not just be a current NFL coordinator. However, as I mentioned on game day morning last week, absolutely, I anticipate that Ben Johnson is going to be a person of interest in this search. It is going to be as much Ben Johnson selling himself to the Bears as much as it's going to be the Bears having to sell themselves to Ben Johnson. This is not a guy who's trying to get the perfect job, but he does want to make sure that there is alignment and the opportunity to have long-term success. You've got a quarterback there in Caleb Williams, who we have seen the flashes from. We've seen him play pretty good football. There is talent on the roster. They've got somewhere around $100 million in cap space, depending where the cap ends up landing next year. They've got extra draft picks, remember, because they still got Carolina's second rounder coming to them. And they've got, again, a quarterback that you can build around for years to come. There's a lot of pieces of the equation that are there, but, the Bears are going to be methodical in this process. And Ben Johnson is going to thoroughly analyze this. The reasons 2 years ago, David Tepper had a plane waiting to take him to Charlotte. He quite possibly was going to be offered and accept that job. Decided the night before, you know what? I don't feel good about it. His wife was expecting at the time. They loved Detroit. Ben had not been to the playoffs. He wanted to see that thing through with Dan Campbell. So he came back. Last year, he was a strong candidate for the Washington Commanders job, somebody that they were going to target. But, going through the entire, the playoff run that they did, and then based on the cadence of how these interviews work, having to go and try to do an interview the day after the Lions had lost that game in San Francisco, he just decided this was not the right time for him either. Is this going to be the year? What I would tell you is Ben Johnson's in a much better place to make those decisions now. He is far further along in terms of the feeling of readiness to be a head coach. But he's also still happy in Detroit. He makes a good living. He loves the job there. He loves Dan Campbell, loves the city of Detroit, and wants to make another run. In other words, this is the rare guy, Rich, who's not just going to take a job because he wants a job so bad. He's already pulled back in each of the past 2 cycles. The only other guy in recent memory I can remember doing it this way on the head coaching side was DeMeco Ryans, who the Vikings wanted to bring in for a second interview when they ended up hiring Kevin O'Connell. And he, got the call and just said, you know what, I'm a 1-year coordinator. I think I need a little bit more seasoning. I think I want to go back to San Francisco. He coached another year. He took the Texans job. They've had a lot of early success here. Ben doesn't need to take a job. He'll be a head coach in the NFL eventually. Is that in Chicago? There's a lot of reasons and a lot of dots you can connect to say that this potentially is going to be a match, but we may not have, firm answers on that until we get into probably late January.
Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show talking about the coaching search and carousel that's going to start to spin off its axis. And so Bill Belichick won't be available for the coaching search because he'll already be in Chapel Hill game planning for Wake Forest, right, Tom? Isn't that what's going to happen? Belichick wants to take down Georgia Tech every year? Is that what I'm to believe?
Yes.
Tom?
There are times where you get a piece of information, and I always sit back and evaluate and say, does this sound too dumb for me to put this out into the universe right now?
On.
Bill Belichick in North Carolina have had conversations.
Okay.
The idea that Bill Belichick is going to be the next head coach of the Tar Heels and be scraping to try to go 6-6 and get into the Cheez-It Bowl in Chapel Hill seems highly, highly unlikely at this point. I would tell you this. Bill Belichick, obviously, we've seen a lot of him doing his media stuff. He also has continued to prepare every day to be ready for opportunities. The focus continues to be on the NFL. But he also wants to have different conversations with people. He visited his son at the University of Washington. We've seen him, pop his head up through the course of fall camps and at different, teams and seeing college programs. He's wanting to, like he always has in his life, continue to educate himself and have interesting conversations. I do think that there's a benefit, not just in, having these conversations, having it be public that, hey, Bill really is passionate and wants to coach, but also people want to talk to Bill because last year, the only team that talked to Bill was the Atlanta Falcons. This is another guy who you're not going to just take any job. I think that geographically, Bill Belichick would be selective. I think in terms of the program and the roster, Bill Belichick is going to be selective. He's not going to, I don't believe, move to the West Coast. I don't believe that he is going to take on a rebuild. There might be 6, 7, 8 head coaching vacancies, including the 3 that are out there. And if you go down that list, I don't really see Belichick definitely not landing with the Jets. I don't see him landing with the Saints. I don't see him landing with the Bears. So it's got to be something that's not open at this point. It once again might be 1 or 2 or 3 jobs that are a fit from all parties here for Bill Belichick. I don't really see that being North Carolina going from 73-year-old Mac Brown to 72-year-old Bill Belichick, and especially in the current state of college athletics, the NIL challenges that programs like UNC have in this environment here. So I would say this, just in conclusion, I know this is a long answer, Rich, but I would say don't be surprised if Bill Belichick in the coming weeks is connected to other places and you're like, Bill interviewed there or Bill's talking to that person. This is all part of the process. It's all part of the plan. ultimately we'll get a better sense as we get into January about what opportunities are out there for Bill Belichick. And if indeed we see him back in the NFL and chasing the career victory record in 2025.
Tom Pelissero here. A few minutes left with our friend from the NFL Media Group, the NFL Insiders on NFL Plus, which you can get right here on Roku, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the Week 14 storyline that's popping out of your notebook. I'm now going to go macro with you, Tom. I will let you choose what we should be knowing from your brain and notebook next, going into the final throes of this National Football League regular season campaign. It is what, Tom?
Well, I'll start out by addressing the game last night briefly because
Sure.
I don't know about you, Rich, but the wave of texts that I got from Dan Campbell is the best coach to Dan Campbell's a moron back to, wow, Dan Campbell, what a gutsy call. It's fun watching this because it's almost as if people have not yet figured out Dan Campbell is the rare head coach who is going to do the right thing all the time. Not the thing that works, but the right thing philosophically. He's not going to change. He doesn't care that when you do the unorthodox thing and it doesn't work, you're going to be criticized more than doing the thing everybody does if it doesn't work. And it's not, when it doesn't work going forward on fourth down, it's not that what a moronic thing to do at your own 30-yard line. I always follow the various, analytic accounts. Ben Baldwin's fourth down bot is a good one on X, and that was a go for it from your own, whatever they were, the 28-yard line
31.
last night.
That was 31.
On 31-yard line. That was a strong go for it in that situation. Dan Campbell is going to, you're never going to bat 1,000 on this, but I think that what people miss about the Lions and why they continue to approach it, it's not just, hey, we're tougher and it's, all part of this machismo or whatever. It's also that they're good at it. And that's part of the thing whether you're talking about going for 2 when you're down 8 points, going for 2 to win it late in regulation, going for fourth downs. So much of what we look at and so much of the discourse that I see is this outcome-based analysis. Part of what you have to take into account here is some teams are really good at this and some teams are really bad at it. So the analytics can say, hey, go for it. But if you're a 30% team going forward in short yardage situations versus a Lions team that last year they were over 50% on those fourth downs. They had a couple in the playoffs that didn't work, and everybody criticizes Dan Campbell. How could he do it? He's so consistent. Look at what they're working with right now on defense. They had 3 of their defensive linemen ruled out last night because of injuries. They got their 2 top linebackers on injured reserve. They don't have Aiden Hutchinson. Zadarius Smith just got there. They're activating Jamal Adams. They had a guy that they signed, the other Jonah Williams, that they signed out the Rams practice squads making plays last night. It's unbelievable what Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson are getting out of that team. Just you have to get used to it. This is not Dan Campbell trying to reinvent football. It's him playing to what he believes is the right thing to do. And whether that's, week 14 on national TV against the Packers or that's back in the NFC Championship game, he's not going to change. And the Lions right now are the hottest team in football, quite possibly the best team in football. And despite all the injuries, I walked away from that game last night saying, this is a team that's equipped to win the whole thing. I think that the Packers, they've shown it how good that they can be. They've got a clear identity as well. Josh Jacobs has been part of this renaissance of paying free agent running backs along with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry because Jacobs has had a phenomenal year. And you're finally seeing Jordan Love getting back to full health, which he really hasn't been through the entire season. And some of the freaky type of stuff that he can do. They had a couple of, they let up a few fourth downs last night, and that ended up being what cost them the victory. But they're playing hard on that side of the ball. That was, power versus power last night with Ben Johnson and Jeff Hafley exchanging haymakers on one side and Matt LaFleur going up against Aaron Glenn on the other. There's a very real possibility. I'm not saying this to besmirch the Philadelphia Eagles, but the 3 best teams in the NFC might all be in the same division. The way the Vikings roared back in the third quarter, I was at that game last week against Arizona. Kevin O'Connell's done such a remarkable job with Sam Darnold in terms of not overexposing him, not having him have to make 20 above the line type throws in a game. They play to what they do well right now, which is taking away the ball on defense, running it, and then making enough plays in the biggest moments to continue to win football games. When they finally had to, they're getting booed middle of the third quarter last week after a 3-and-out. They're down 13 points on their home field. They kind of pulled the governor off Sam Darnold, and he put some balls in really tight windows and trusted guys like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to go make a play. I mean, you look at right now what the NFC playoffs would look like, Rich. The Lions would be the team getting the bye, but those first-round matchups with, whether it's the Packers going right now, then they would face the Seahawks in Seattle. I think there's a pretty decent chance the Packers would be favored in that game. And then we get a potential playoff preview because Vikings-Falcons would be a first-round matchup. We get that game on Sunday in Minnesota at, what certainly seems like a critical juncture in the Falcons' evaluation of their offense and of their quarterback position. I did talk to Bijan Robinson on the phone yesterday, and I asked him about the confidence level in Kirk Cousins. He said there's no conversation in the locker room about anybody other than Kirk. Fully believe in him. We got to clean some things up. We'll have more from that conversation on game day morning on Sunday, Rich. And I wouldn't expect Bijan to say anything different here, but there's some underlying stuff. The strength of schedule has been really high for the Falcons. They've had some difficult games, but they got to play better when you score one touchdown over a 2-game stretch. That's not good enough. That's not the standard for Atlanta, and they got a really big one with Kirk coming back to Minnesota on Sunday.
Listen, that was an excellent review of a stupendous pull by you to focus on the NFC, and that is 100% a story, and also self-promotional about game day morning, a conversation with Bijan Robinson. I always appreciate that. But out of all of what you just said, the thing I want to pull out, the people who are texting you that Dan Campbell's a genius, Dan Campbell's a moron, are those friends, fantasy football friends, or are those sources in the NFL who are just texting you saying, I can't believe it? Are those NFL people?
All of the above. A lot of agents in that mix as well. The number of group texts that I'm on that are firing simultaneously during a game, it's fairly remarkable. And by the way, on game day morning this Sunday, Rich, Sam Darnold is going to join me live on the show as he arrives at the stadium as he faces the guy that he replaced in Minnesota.
Look at you. Fantastic.
Great job.
Well done. Before I let you go, Mike Hoskins, our eagle-eyed coordinating producer, Don, our director, pointed out during this conversation, is that an Elvis Christmas album over your right shoulder?
I realized I got the Christmas decor going here. I got the the little Christmas trees. I actually ordered the Elvis Christmas album because on Amazon that was the one that could get here the fastest.
Go grab it.
Prior to that,
okay, there you go.
Hold on one sec.
There you go. There goes Tommy P.
The previous album I had up that a lot of people picked up on was this Rick Springfield album. I thought was a nice Easter egg.
Look at that.
I put that up for a couple of days, and I Googled yesterday. The number of people who were responding to me about Rick Springfield was astronomical. So I think now I'm going to have to get in a rotation back there. A lot of times I have, my friends Pew 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 is showcased back there.
Gannon,
but I think I'm going to start mixing it up.
Okay.
Some other things
So again, fantastic. Good job. Good pull, Mike. No, it's just of all the people, whose hairstyle you do resemble the most, it's not Rick Springfield. It is Elvis Presley.
Young Elvis.
I mean, you got to
Never had the sideburns. I can't grow the chops for the later Elvis, but this is like early cool Elvis, right? Yeah, I'll take that.
Excellent.
Movie Elvis.
That's right.
Yeah.
We can't go on together with Suspicious Minds, which ridiculously
is a wedding song.
Susie wanted to play at our wedding because she likes the song, and I'm like, have you read the lyrics? Because that's not we can't go on together with Suspicious Minds. All right, Tom, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. See you on game day morning, sir.
Thanks, Rich.
That's Tommy P. Everybody.
Ready, Tommy P.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.